Oh, my lord, you wouldn't believe it.
Oh, yes, I would. I would suck his dick. So what are you ladies discussing?
Books?
Welcome to the Nerd Blitz Book Club. Pull up a seat and pull down your pants. Listen to us read and go on rants. Hey gang, thanks for joining us this week for the Nerd Blitz Book Club. I'm Doom.
And I'm Fitz.
And we're here with, I almost said Star Wars Dark Disciple.
No, it is not Star Wars Dark Disciple. It is the second in our book club series, the short story by H.P. Lovecraft called Herbert West, Re-Animator.
There you go. Oh, but fuck, we did Dark Disciple for so long. It says, say thanks for joining us for the Nerd Blitz Book Club. I'm conditioned to say Dark Disciple.
You only did it like 19 or 20 times in a row.
No shit. Oh, fuck.
This will be considerably shorter series.
It's gonna be what, 2 episodes?
Yeah. Six chapters, 6 short chapters.
Yeah, but this one I think is gonna be a lot denser than our next episode.
Oh, really? I didn't read ahead.
No, I'm just saying that because I want to talk about the history of this motherfucker.
Oh, right. So yeah, we got a lot more to talk about this time.
Yeah.
Just before we really even get into what the story actually is.
Yeah, how are you reading this? Where do you have it from?
I have it from that big fat complete fiction of H.P. Lovecraft book by Chartwell Books.
Okay, I've got mine. It's called The Monster Book of Zombies, edited by Stephen Jones.
Okay.
It's a collection of a bunch of zombie short stories and shit. And I think I've mentioned this before. Most of them aren't good.
Yeah.
And I guess the fucker who collected these in my book, again, The Monster Book of Zombies, it's published by Metro Books in 2009. But he wrote little, like, intros for every book. I'm guessing it's him.
Yeah, so it's like a literary analysis, almost.
Sort of, yeah. But he kind of goes into, on a few of them, he goes into, like, the author's influences and shit like that.
Yeah.
Or, like, some of the other work they did, because the first story in here is by Clive Barker.
Oh, sure, yeah.
It's called Sex, Death, and Starshine, which I think that was one of the only other stories in here I liked.
Yeah, he writes good shit.
Yeah, and in here he talks about Hellraiser and all that shit. But, yeah, the history of this book is so fucking fascinating to me, or this story.
Yeah, I was going to say there's probably not much on Lovecraft's influences, since I'm sure he probably didn't have any when he was writing this fucking crazy shit.
No.
His influence was fucking laudanum. Or fucking peyote.
Yeah, no shit. That was back in the time where, cocaine was rampant too. But yeah, on this one, it's not really his influences. It's more of, like, the story behind it, or part of the story behind it. But yeah, let's just get into it. Before we recorded, we started talking about it. I told you to save it for the show. So go back into what you were saying before we started.
Well, one of the things I like about H.P. Lovecraft, and even the guy who wrote the fucking Conan books, this shit is old, dude. This is not. This wasn't written like 20, 30, 40 years ago. This shit was written in the 20s. Okay? Can you fucking wrap your head around what people who saw these stories, because these were all like published in periodicals. Like I think this that's one thing we'll talk about Re-Animator as well. As I noticed at the beginning of each chapter, there's like a paragraph or two like reset up of who the characters
That's one
are.
of the things I want to talk about too. Yeah.
And I immediately was like, what the fuck is this? Was this like a serial? I mean, was this in a magazine somewhere? And when I looked it up, sure enough, it was published over like a 2-year period in from like 1920 to 22 or 21 to 22 or something like that.
It was first published in...
It's like Weird Tales or something.
They were originally published under the title Gruesome Tales in Homebrew Magazine, starting in January of 22.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll read this dude. I guess it's Stephen Jones. I'll read what he wrote about it when we get into that. But as you were talking about, like, it blowing people's minds and shit back then.
These were like underground, not underground, but like...
Well, they kind of were from what I've
they're like
read.
seedy, like almost like fanzines almost of the day.
Yes, exactly.
Like you wouldn't necessarily find these magazines just at your fucking pharmacy on
yeah,
the
it's not
spinner
like
rack.
fucking People or something, yeah.
Right. But, I mean, can you imagine, like, people in 1922 reading these stories and going, what in the fuck is this guy on?
Yeah,
Like, I'm sure
can.
there were some, like, wacko, like, nerdy weirdos that were really into it and liked it.
Like us.
Yeah, but I'm sure it was way fucking less people than there would be now.
No doubt.
I mean,
yeah,
the mainstream super religious, super conservative people of like the 20s. I mean, just if you watch Boardwalk Empire,
which I've never seen, but
Boardwalk
I
Empire
know.
starts, I think the first season is in 1920.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, by the end it might be, I think they do a big time jump at the end, but I haven't seen the last season. But I think the last season that I saw was the season before the final one, and I think they might have been up to 1924. So this story would have been published during the time of Boardwalk Empire. Now,
Well,
I
just
cannot,
put it this
I cannot
way.
imagine anybody in that fucking... Like, there's a scene of Steve Buscemi reading a book, and it's fucking Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
And it's, like, new.
Well,
like, he's
I mean,
reading it for the first time, like, oh, interesting. But I
put
cannot...
it this way. This is all just about 95 years old.
That's fucking crazy.
Isn't it? It fucking blows your mind. I mean, you try to equate it to other shit, but just put the hard number on it. It's almost 95 years old, dude.
Yeah. And I mean, this is some advanced notions, like the themes and the, like, talk about ahead of your time.
Mm-hmm.
People must have thought that he was an absolute fucking mental patient. And I think he might have been at one point a mental patient. Like, I think
that I don't know, because I haven't
he did
looked
have
into
some mental
him.
issues, but it may have just
that
been...
I don't know, because I haven't looked into his history much. I've really just dove deep on this story because like I said, the opening paragraph this dude wrote about it, or page this dude wrote about it, it was like, wait, really? Which, fuck it. I'll just read that real quick, okay?
Okay.
Again, this is, I'm guessing, Stephen Jones. But it says, Howard Phillips Lovecraft, 1890 to 1937, Nooch, is probably the most important and influential author of supernatural fiction in the 20th century. Almost every major writer working in the horror field today has been inspired in some way by his work.
Yeah, there's so much stuff that's been lifted and expanded on.
Well, yeah, you can really see it sewn through a lot of shit.
Yeah. So many of the tropes and the, I don't want to say cliches, but like, or the kind of formula or the
formula. That's like the perfect word for it.
So much has been. People didn't write shit like this before him.
No, and I mean, it sounds like for a while after nobody did either. You know?
No, well, no, or they did it and it was really bad.
Well, that's what I mean, sort of, because like if it's not as good as this, nobody did it.
Yeah.
Did what he did. You know?
Yeah, and it's just like. It would almost be like when Raymond Chandler and Dashiell Hammett and those guys that wrote really good kind of hard-boiled detective novels.
Yeah.
You know, they had success, and then there were all kinds of imitators, and that's how you got to the really fucking shitty, like, dime store detective novels in the 50s and 40s.
Well,
and
I mean, if you want to talk about detective novels and shit that are stories and shit that were before their time, another upcoming book club, Arthur Conan Doyle with Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, yeah.
Those were way before their time.
Yeah, I mean the mystery of it and how smart and intelligent and complicated and stuff that his stories were definitely probably before their time. But Lovecraft shit was before its time because it was just so
Fucked
otherworldly and out there. Like the Sherlock Holmes stuff is like based in reality. Like there's
yeah.
I mean it's unbelievable that somebody could be that smart.
Yeah.
But it's not like creatures coming from outer space and
No. But I mean, there really weren't detective novels like that before Doyle, is what I'm saying.
Oh yeah.
And then like before Lovecraft, it seems there wasn't horror written like this.
No, not really. I mean, you had like Dracula and Frankenstein, that kind of shit, which, in and of itself is kind of fucked up. Frankenstein was written in the 1800s, right?
Yeah, I think so. And wasn't
Like
that written
how fucking
because
ghoulish.
wasn't that written because like she got stuck in snowed into a cabin or something, and her friends were like, "I dare you to write something fucked up."
Yeah, like
and she did.
Yeah, there were a bunch of writers in a castle or something, and
Yeah.
I think that's how it went. And they were all supposed to write something fucked up, and like hers was the best.
Yeah, hers is the one that hit.
Yeah, but I mean, how fucking ghoulish must that have been in the 1800s? Like it's all about digging up dead bodies, and how blasphemous must it have been. Like she must have taken a world of shit over that book.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of this seems to have pulled from that and then just ratcheted it up, times 10.
Yeah, and that's probably why one of the reasons why people, as we talked about this before too, was this is among Lovecraft aficionados, this is supposedly regarded as his poorest effort, Re-Animator.
That's in this intro too.
Yeah.
A little bit. And apparently he wasn't too happy to it either, which I'll get to that.
Right, it was just a job, right? He was just writing it to get paid.
Yeah, it's got the details here. Let me...
Okay, go ahead.
Keep going on this a little bit. I'll skip some of it because some of it really doesn't have anything to do with this, but the next part says, what makes this fact even more impressive is that Lovecraft was never prolific, and his short stories, poems, and essays mostly appeared in the amateur press or in pulp magazines like Weird Tales during his lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
So there again, it's like...
Yeah, he was a nobody in his lifetime.
Yeah, it was like, the most underground shit, and then after he died, people were like, do you hear this motherfucker?
Yeah, he was a failed writer during his lifetime.
Which, like I said, this is the only thing of his so far that I've ever read, and it's like, if this sucks, I want to read what he did that was good.
If this is the worst. Yeah.
Whew. But let's see. Herbert West Re-Animator is admittedly one of the author's earliest professional tales, and as such, lacks much of the power he brought to his later work. In 1921, Lovecraft was approached by fellow amateur journalist George Julian Houston to write a series of 6 connected horror stories to appear in Houston's Houghton, I guess. I don't fucking know. New professional magazine Homebrew. These were originally published under the title Gruesome Tales, spelt Grewsome, beginning with the January 1922 issue. Lovecraft complained about the burden of hack labor and the arid waste of commercialism, but still accepted $5 per episode, which worked out to 1/4 cent a word, or $30 in total. A measly sum even in 1922.
Yeah, $30, that sucks.
Yeah, no shit.
I think we made more than that on the camping trip.
Yeah, we did.
I think we made like double or triple than that. At least double.
Yeah. I mean, we basically made like the modern day equivalent.
Yeah. Hurry up, die so we can be famous.
I can't get to that. Don't push me. To add insult to injury, although Houghton paid promptly for the first 2 installments, he kept Lovecraft waiting months for the rest of the money.
Oh, what a dick.
Right? It's impossible that Lovecraft could have foreseen, much less approved, that the story would eventually form the basis for Stuart Jordan's outrageous 1985 cult movie hit Re-Animator and its equally splattery sequel Bride of Re-Animator, both featuring Jeffrey Combs as the death-defying medical student Herbert West.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
And it's nuts, like those movies. Like I don't know what the second half of this book's gonna be, but the first 3 chapters. Well, besides the fact that it's not set in this time period, the movie is like just, I mean, so loosely based on this.
Well, from what I've heard, it's basically just like the name Herbert West, the name Re-Animator, and like Arkham, Miskatonic University, and shit like that. That's basically all it is. Cause
Yeah, I mean they do similar things, but it's not.
it's not an adaptation.
No, not really. I mean, I guess
like,
it kind of is, but it kind of isn't. It's a pretty loose adaptation.
Yeah, I was gonna say it seems more like a loose translation than an adaptation.
Yeah, and Bride of Re-Animator, get the fuck out of here. That shit was like.
I've never seen either of them, but I did read an Evil Dead versus Re-Animator comic.
Yeah.
Once, and that was pretty fucking good. I should have reread that before we did this, but too fucking late now. Maybe I can read it before next time we record. But yeah, as you said, among the people who like his work, this is like widely considered one of his worst. From what I've read, he pretty much hated it too, because he hated that every episode of it or every chapter had to end on a cliffhanger, and he hated that every chapter had to start with, a recap.
A restatement of the cast of characters.
Yeah, which
down to like the physical description of them too. That's crazy.
Well, yeah, because I think, as you said, it appeared over like 2 years or something. Strangely, that wasn't mentioned in there. Well,
that's why I think I read that. Maybe I didn't.
Well, maybe you did.
It was probably only a quarterly publication. I'll bet if it was like a home, like an indie press type thing, he probably only published it every 3 or 4 months. It probably wasn't a monthly.
Well, it says it was his new professional magazine, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But apparently he hated it for those reasons too, that like he had to restate everything at the beginning, he had to do a recap, and then he had to end on a cliffhanger, which, talking about those recaps, that's one of the things that to me felt really weird.
We talked about this was written in 1921, published in 1922.
Yes.
Like one of the first things that he talks about, it's written from the perspective of
a friend of
Herbert West's assistant or a colleague.
Yeah, a former friend turned colleague turned sort of assistant. Yeah.
Yeah, turn to get the fuck away from me.
I mean, if you want to talk about when it was written too, let's go back into that. That's something that really stood out to me because, like I said, I've read the Sherlock Holmes stories. I like them, and I think they were written before this, weren't they?
Oh yeah. Those were the 1800s as well.
Yeah.
Late 1800s.
Well, those obviously they're old timey. Those are over 100 years old.
Yeah.
But at some points in this, and I'll just say right now because this is going to sound like a hardcore criticism, but at some points in this, it was almost like reading a foreign language that I had to translate into modern.
Yeah, that's what I like about the way he writes is everything's a tongue twister in this. It's like a brain twister to read these stories, the way he writes them.
Well, see,
they're
always been...
They're all very, very almost Old Englishy, but not really Old English.
Yeah, but see, that's always been one of my problems with, like, Shakespeare and shit.
Yeah, well, Shakespeare is to the extreme.
Oh, I know, but...
Yeah, like, I don't fucking understand most of what... Like, he's talking almost... Like, some of his shit is, like, in code almost.
Uh-huh, it's like, he's talking in circular codes and shit.
And turns of phrase or sayings and colloquialisms that don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
So you're like, what the fuck is a maidenhead?
Yeah, I have no clue. And people were like, you don't like Shakespeare as much as you like to read and shit? And it's like, I can't understand it.
No, that's like schoolwork.
Uh-huh. It's like, I don't want to have to translate while I'm reading. And it's like...
Yeah, and that's one of those ones, one of those that gets ruined by school. Like, everybody's forced to read that shit. Like, when you're not really ready to read it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're in 9th grade now. Let's read fucking Romeo and Juliet, as if anybody can fucking understand that shit.
Well, I mean...
And it's boring as shit when you're 15. Like,
well, I'll tell you what. I've got a funny story about something like that. I forget what the book was, but at one point, when we were in school, they gave us a book, and it was like, you've got to read this, and we've got to do a report on it. Yeah. So, at that point, it was like 13 years ago, or 14 years ago, right when Cedric the Entertainer's book, Grown-Ass Man came out.
Yeah.
I took the book they gave us to read and slipped Cedric's book in the middle of it and read it like a fucking porn magazine or something. And I got busted with it one day, and the teacher was like, this isn't what you're supposed to be reading. Besides, it's vulgar. Look at the title. And it was grown-a $$ And you're like, that's got the word ass on it. And I was like, no. It says grown a money man.
Oh.
But yeah, I was never one for it's like, okay, now we've got to read this. It's like, no, we don't. So yeah, that's completely other topic, but it fit the situation.
But what I was going to say was, it was written in 21, published in 22.
Yeah.
But the very first paragraph where the guy starts to tell the story,
yeah,
he says that, their first incident happened, right, like when they were medical students at Miskatonic University in Arkham.
Yeah.
17 years prior.
Yeah.
So this story really takes place in like 1905.
Yeah. Which, that's another thing. There was a lot of fucking jumping around, And
yeah, you think?
And,
I didn't think there was
well,
that much jumping around.
through the 3 chapters, and it's by necessity. It has to jump around because that's the assignment he was given.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things that bugged me. And it goes back to what I said earlier about every or I don't think I did say this, but I will. Starting with chapter 2, it felt like every chapter was part of a different story. And then he remembered, oh shit, I've got to get back on track and tell this story.
Well, yeah, I mean, the way the guy wrote that intro, he said that he was commissioned to write 6 connected horror stories.
Yeah.
So it's not like he's writing a 6-chapter book. He's writing 6 individual stories connected together somehow. So yeah, they are a little bit different. Not too much though. I mean, they're pretty well connected.
Yeah, it seems like, to me it seems like one book that he was forced to write, recaps for, as I've said a bunch of times. It feels like one book, and then those recaps really fucking throw it off because
yeah, it does.
It seems like he's reading, or he's trying to set up a different story, and then it's like, okay, let's get back on track. And it goes back to the fucking assistant or whatever telling a new story.
Right.
About
here's this other time we did this.
Yeah, because I mean at the start of this, doesn't it say that Herbert West is missing?
Right, he's gone missing. So this has been 17 years since they started working on their Re-Animator experiments.
Yeah.
So now he's gone missing, and so that's why he's telling this tale.
Yeah, and that was weird to me too, because it's like, okay, this dude who used to be my friend, we were like super close, we hung out all the time in college, he's missing. But fuck that. You know what we did one time when we were in college? It was so fucked up, dude. Listen.
Well, I think he's saying all these things because obviously he thinks that he's come to some nefarious end.
Yeah.
Because of these experiments.
I totally get that, but again, with the way that he was assigned to write this,
yeah,
it's really fucked up.
Yeah.
And it's like, if he would have been just left alone to his own devices, it would have been, I'm sure, a whole lot better.
Yeah, it would have been a way more cohesive story.
So, it's 17 years before West has gone missing, and Homeboy, which, in these first 3 chapters, they don't give a name, do they?
No, they don't. I don't think so.
His buddy's telling an incident, almost as you've suggested in the past, almost like he's writing in a diary or something, sort of like that story you wrote for the camping trip.
Right. You could tell right away just by reading one story, which, by the way, I've never read this story, so this should tell you how closely this resembles the rest of his stories.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the voice I was thinking of when I wrote that story for the camping trip.
Yeah, sort of like, okay, here's some shit that happened, like in a diary. Because I think you did say that in the past, didn't you? That's how you were trying to write it, is like as a diary, sort of a confessional.
He's writing a confession because he thinks he's going to die soon.
Yeah, and that's sort of how this is, because I do get the feeling that this writer is worried.
Yeah, that's the way a lot of Lovecraft stories are, actually.
Which, again, if this is what his other shit's like, and this is the worst, I want to read more. I want to read the best of it.
Yeah, you would dig it, man.
Yeah, I think so. But, anyway, his buddy here goes into the history of this fucked up experiment, or thing that West was interested in.
Yeah, like they were both medical students, and Herbert West is obsessed with trying to figure out how to reanimate or to inject life back into dead things.
Yeah.
So he's like doing these clandestine experiments in the university on like dead animals.
Yeah, and a lot of the other students and the teachers and shit are like, what?
Yeah, and they bring the hammer down and are like, you can't do that anymore here. That's unacceptable. And so he butts heads with like the dean or the main professor, that Halsey guy.
Yeah, Alan Halsey.
Yeah, and he's in the movie too. There's an Alan Halsey character in the movie, but but they're at odds because he doesn't. Herbert West believes that they're kind of holding him back or holding back scientific advancement because of their like puritanical old school hang-ups.
Yeah. Which that comes back in chapter 3.
Yeah.
He's working on a lot of animals and shit, but in most of the cases when they come back, they're like extremely violent.
Yeah, or they don't, or they just barely, they get just some tiny little spark of life, and then it's done.
Yeah.
But he's developed this serum that he injects into these dead bodies, and that's supposed to bring them back. And what I thought was pretty interesting was it's not just one serum that works on anything. Like, he has to fucking formulate these different serums based on, the same serum doesn't work on a squirrel that works on a rat, that works on a person.
Yeah, exactly.
Even among people, it's like black people need a different serum than white people, than Asian people, than men, than women.
That part there was weird to me.
Yeah. Well, here's the other thing.
It's given the time. I get that, but
here's the other thing about Lovecraft that you have to kind of accept.
That I didn't bump into because of the time.
Yeah, and the same with, like I said, Raymond Chandler and those kind of guys.
Yeah.
It can be a little dicey in the race department.
This comes to an issue that I always have, especially like in this day and age. And again, I didn't really bump into it because I know the time that this was written,
Yeah.
You can't hold them to the standards of it today. I mean, you can look at it and be like, what the fuck, dude?
Or like, what an asshole. Like, really? It's like your racist old grandma. Like,
yeah.
That's just
exactly.
what they know. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're a terrible person. That's what was acceptable.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing that really made me bump into it is, like, he says that black people and white people are affected differently. And it's like, we still have this issue today because people don't seem to understand. Again, back then they didn't understand, but it's like, people don't understand why our skin colors are different and shit. And it's like, it's a scientific fact that, like, say, a black dude versus us, that his ancestral tribe stayed closer to the equator. That's why his skin is black. It's not like an alien dropped an Asian dude, a white dude, and a fucking black dude. It's because it's a genetic mutation. That's why people's skin is different colors and shit. So You've got, like, people whose skin is, like, so black it's almost purple. And then you've got some black people whose skin is so dark or so light, they almost look like a white dude who just got a slight tan.
Right.
And that's
it's all environmental adaptation.
Exactly. And when I read that, I bumped into it simply because of all the shit that's happening in the world today that people are just today are too fucking stupid to understand. And it's one of the reasons why the word racist pisses me off, because it's like, it's not racist, asshole. It's ethnicist. It's a different ethnicity. Which, I should tell you, I've been holding this back on the main show, but it's like, there's a perfect excuse to talk about it.
Yeah.
So it's like, fuck it, let it out. What the fuck is wrong with you people? We're not different races, you assholes. Ugh. But yeah, I didn't think that was interesting just because, like, they didn't know that back then. It's like, you stupid fucks.
Or it wasn't widely known or widely accepted. Or, probably mostly they just didn't give a shit.
Well, no, I'm pretty sure it wasn't known back then because, I mean, again, this was 1921 when he wrote it.
Yeah.
They didn't fucking give a shit about ancestral tribes and shit then. They probably didn't even fucking know much about, life pretty much started in Africa and then migrated north or south or whatever to get away from the sun. Again, that I understand. They didn't know that back then, but it's like, now I bumped into it because of that reason. It's like, you fucking idiots, you didn't know shit. You were probably thinking the earth was flat too, you dumb motherfuckers.
Well, there's going to come a point in this in these 3 chapters where you're not going to be able to defend it so easily.
Yeah.
Because he does reanimate a black guy, and his description is not flattering.
Yes, I know, and it's like, oh my god.
I know, I cringed. I was like, oh no. Oh, please don't do that.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about this.
Again, like I said, I'm not defending it. It's like, you dumb fucks. But still, it's just like, it's of the time, and to like ignore it, it's like, that's just stupid.
Yeah, you can't ignore it.
Because you're not going to benefit anybody by being like, well, this never happened. It's like, yes,
Sure.
it did! But anyway, we'll get to that when we get there.
Yeah, you need to confront it and say, see this? Don't do this anymore.
Yes, Mr. President.
Yes, this happened. Don't do this again. Let's not go back to this.
So anyway.
Besides the fact the story doesn't benefit from that description at all.
No! Was that in chapter 3? Because I feel like I just read that.
Yeah, I think it was the last chapter.
So we'll get there, and it's just like, what the fuck? But anywho.
So the faculty steps in and tells West that his experiments are no good. You can't do that. You know, if we catch you doing it again, you know, we're gonna suspend you or expel you or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
And the assistant in his writing here is saying it wasn't long after that West confided in him that, guess what? I'm gonna start getting fresh human bodies to do this on.
Well, it wasn't fresh yet. Fresh came later. He knew that he wanted to start trying on humans. Yeah.
Yeah, so he was trying to get...
Because he'd worked on rabbits and guinea pigs, cats, dogs, and monkeys, and then the assholes were like, no, you're done here. And he's like, okay, fine, I'm done here. And then he told his buddy, he's like, we're gonna go find a human. Yeah.
Right. So they start watching... Well, they set up shop in this abandoned farmhouse.
Yeah.
They picked this farmhouse because it was kind of secluded away from the road, and you know, they covered all the windows with curtains.
Yeah.
So people couldn't see lights in the middle of the night. And they start watching the death notices in the paper. As soon as they'd find a hot one, as they say. And it also has to be like not maimed, so it couldn't be somebody that like was crushed in an accident or fucking had limbs severed and was all mangled and fucked up.
What we wanted were corpses interred soon after death and without artificial preservation.
Oh, right. They couldn't be embalmed either, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Preferably free from malforming disease and certainly with all organs present. Accident victims were our best hope, which that one to me, it's like, okay, say somebody falls off their fucking horse and breaks their neck. Can you use that?
Yeah, I guess you probably could.
Just imagine you're getting chased by one of these fucking big old farm boys with his head lolling to the side just chasing after you.
Uh-huh.
And his bib overalls.
We'll get to that.
Oh, no shit.
But so they finally find a good one. They see a good one in the paper and are like, okay, tonight we're going to go dig this fucker up. So they do. They sneak into the graveyard and fucking dig this guy up.
Yeah, it was a brawny young workman who'd drowned only the morning before in a pond.
Right. So they basically weekend at Bernie's this guy back to the fucking farmhouse.
Exactly.
Right? Isn't that how he describes it? Like
I think
carry him.
I don't remember if this was the
like...
one or the one before, but yeah, it was basically they put a coat on him and a hat, and they put their arms around him and was like, "True la lu, he's so fucked up. You wouldn't believe how fucked up he is. He's just like, whoa, I think I just pissed myself."
He is dead tired.
But this is important, so just let me say this real quick. It said the dude drowned in the pond and he was buried at the town's expense, which meant they did it quick and didn't embalm him. That's why they knew he was the perfect...
Right, because that's how they start scoping out like the potter's field.
Yeah, and it says here that afternoon they went and peeped out the grave and were like, okay, this shit'll work, and went back that night after midnight.
And they did put him in a canvas sack. They didn't weekend at Bernie's.
Yeah, that was...
It must
I guess
be the
that's
next
in
one.
chapter 2, yeah. Which... Did yours give the chapter titles?
Yeah.
Okay, this chapter is titled From the Dark. Presumably because they went and unburied this fuckhead at night.
I guess so, yeah.
So yeah, they start unburying the dude and they hit the wood box with him in it. As you said, they throw him in a sack and go back to the farmhouse, right?
Yep, and they put him on their dissecting table in the farmhouse and We had at last what West had always longed for, a real dead man of the ideal kind, ready for the solution as prepared according to the most careful calculations and theories for human use. So this is like the perfect subject, or what he thinks is the perfect subject.
Exactly. Which, we're rapidly approaching the end of this first chapter, which that's where it really hooked me. And the reason why I wanted to read this, because if you remember, I read this like months ago, and I'm pretty sure I mentioned it either in one of the book club episodes or one of the episodes of the main pod, because I told you I was reading Dark Disciple when we were reading it. I was reading the Star Wars book I was reading, and this. And this is why I suggested, dude, we should fucking do this book, because the end of this chapter is so fucking good.
Yeah, it goes in a way that, like, I didn't necessarily see coming that's how this was gonna go.
Yeah,
and it's kind of how each chapter has gone so far, and it's like, oh, that's fucked up. So they inject this dude with the serum, and
they got no response with the stethoscope.
no response.
Stethoscope.
Yeah, they waited for how long? 3/4 of an hour without the least signs of life.
Yeah, and pronounced the solution inadequate.
So then he whips up another batch because he thinks that solution was maybe inadequate. So he tweaked it a little bit and whipped up a new solution and stabbed him with that one. Which
makes you wonder, what if combining solutions? That can't be the greatest idea, can it?
No, I mean, probably not. But I guess if the one... Yeah, I don't know.
That's what I was wondering, is like, is that what caused the ending?
Maybe, but he doesn't do it in any of the other ones.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking the first solution just didn't work at all. That it didn't matter that they mixed them. But that's a good point. Like, that's probably not the best idea to start doing cocktails.
It's like, well, fuck it. This didn't work. Let's add 3 more. But it says after they were going to try one change in the solution, but that afternoon they dug a grave in the cellar that they would put the body in when they were done with it. Mm-hmm. Which that, too, is just like, whoa.
Yeah, I know. So that they're, like, going to have a fucking cellar full of bodies.
It's like, and what happens if it fucking gets full? Then what are you going to do?
Well, they find a new farmhouse.
I guess. For although we had fixed a lock on the house, we wished to shun even the remotest risk of a ghoulish discovery. Besides, the body would not be even approximately fresh the next night.
Yeah, so they definitely didn't want to leave the thing just sitting out on the table all night.
Yeah, because it'd start getting stanky.
Yeah, so they step next door in their little makeshift operating room. They've got like a curtain dividing the room, so they go on the other side of this curtain to mix that new solution. And while they're over there, then there's like a sudden and ghoulish scream, right?
Yeah, the most appalling and demonic succession of cries that either of us had ever heard. Not more unutterable could have been the chaos of hellish sound if the pit itself had opened to release the agony of the damned. Which, that's the kind of talk I'm talking about, where it's like, okay, stop.
Yeah, but that really fucking paints a picture, right?
Oh, no shit. But like I said, I just had to stop and like reread it a couple times and be like,
yeah.
Oh, I know what he's saying. That's fucked up.
Yeah, you don't need any more description about what it sounded like.
No. And then let's see. For in one inconceivable cacophony was centered all the supernal?
Mm-hmm.
See, that's one of those old-timey words that's like, what?
Right.
Terror and unnatural despair of animate nature. And it's like, this is fucked up.
Yeah, that's some flowery shit.
Mm-hmm.
That's some really goth flowery shit. So this fucking crazy moan, scream, hellish noise comes from where they left that body.
Yeah.
And they're like, fuck all this shit. And they both jump out the window and run away. They ran straight back to his dorm room.
Yeah. It says, I think we screamed ourselves as we stumbled frantically toward the town. That reminded me like Shaggy and Scooby. They're just running like, ah! And shit, you know?
Yeah. So they get back to West's dorm and they like try to reassure each other that they didn't actually hear anything, that it was fine. And it was just their nerves. And the next day they get up and read about how the old Chapman farmhouse is inexplicably burnt to the ground. They're like, oh, well, that's no big deal. I mean, we probably just knocked over the acetylene lamp on the way out when we were running away, and it just caught the whole house on fire and burned it down.
Yeah. And then this second news item's like, what are you, too fucking stupid?
second little news item that they read about is there had been an attempt to disturb that fresh grave in the potter's field, as if by futile and spadeless clawing at the earth. That we could not understand, for we had patted down the mold very carefully. So they had filled that grave back in and covered it up and patted it down to make it look undisturbed.
Uh-huh.
The next day, it looked like something had been clawing with its hands to get back into that grave.
Again, that's fucked up.
That is fucked up. And then it says, for the next 17 years, West would constantly be looking over his shoulder, thinking that something was feeling like something was following him, or that he would think he hears footsteps behind him.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Spooky? Yeah, I know. I'm wiggling my fingers at the mic, but nobody can see me or hear it. So, yeah, that right there. I read it and it's like, okay, they fucking inject the dude. They fuck off to the other room and it's like, well, that didn't work. Ho hum. Let's get another solution. And then all of a sudden there's like, ah! And they're like, fuck this, let's go.
Uh-huh.
Then the joint burns down and somewhere in the graveyard somebody's digging a grave and it's like, that is fucking cool, man.
Isn't that fucking awesome?
And then I was like, wait a second, is this public domain?
It might be. I mean, these things have been published in so many fucking things. I think you can get free ebooks. I think this may be, like, if you have a Kindle, if you go to the Amazon store, I think these Lovecraft stories are free.
Yeah, well,
So I think it might be public domain.
Reading that right there is like, god damn, dude, we need to get some people, get a camera. Do you see where I'm going yet? If this is public domain, it's like, I want to fucking see that. Nobody else is making it. Let's fucking do this.
Yeah.
I mean, the other chapters are good and shit too, but fuck that. That chapter right there, let's fucking do this, man.
Yeah, it's a hell of an opening chapter to hook you in.
No shit.
And just like with most of his stuff, it's so unassuming that it doesn't sneak up on you till the very end.
And then again, after reading that intro where it's like, this is widely considered one of his worst works, and it's like, are you fucking shitting me?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Chapter 2, The Plague Demon.
Like, who the fuck puts those two words together in 1922?
Strange shit like that, you know he had to have had, for the time, strange motherfuckers that were like, I want more of this. I can't fucking wait.
Yeah, and those were the people you wanted to stay the hell away from. Because if they were like that back then, when it was far less acceptable to be that weird, there were probably lots of people who were like, ooh, this is interesting, but you would never, ever talk to anybody about it.
Oh, fuck no.
Or they would or they would put you in a fucking rubber room.
In a way, it sort of seems like how comics were viewed, like, back in the 60s, 70s and shit. Like, once you got past 12, if you read comics, it's like, what are you, fucking retarded?
Right.
What's wrong with you? That's sort of how I see, or imagine it was probably like, you know? If you were like, dude, I read this thing called Re-Animator, and they're like, wait, what the fuck does Re-Animator mean?
Reanimate what?
Exactly. And then he's like, well, see this dude?
Well, dead people, of course.
Yeah, it's like, this dude, he digs up a body and brings it back to life, and they're like, the fuck is wrong with you?
Right.
No, hang on. What the fuck is wrong with you? No, I'm not going to let it drop. Call his mom. Lock him up.
Right. Call the authorities. I think this guy might be a serial killer.
Are you Jack the Ripper?
So, chapter 2, The Plague Demon. So we pick up...
Not really.
Well, he's still telling his story,
yeah.
the assistant. Now we're moving on to the following summer. So this is 16 years ago. So it'd be the following summer after their first incident with that, with burning the farmhouse down. And typhoid is sweeping through Arkham and fucking wrecking house through Arkham and killing a bunch of people. Which
Arkham is the town that Miskatonic or the main town in the Miskatonic Valley, which, yeah.
Yeah, it's like the town that most all of his stories take place in or around. Kind of like, and again, this is like an influence you can see in like Stephen King.
I was just going to ask you that.
Where he's created like Castle Rock.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Isn't that what it is?
I don't know.
In most of his.
I haven't read any of Stephen King's shit either.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Dude, we've had this conversation. You can't be surprised.
My memory is shit, dude. I don't remember anything.
Yeah, because remember I told you I've always wanted to read The Stand and Dark Tower. Because those sound fucking tits.
Yeah, so he's got his own Yeah, I think it's... Fuck, is it Castle Rock?
Well, I know there's that production company, Castle Rock
Right.
Entertainment. I don't know if that's his or somebody else's or what. I just remember seeing that all the time when I was little.
Yeah, hold on.
What, are you Googling it?
Yeah.
That's why your memory sucks, dude. Because you don't fucking go through your files in your memory. You're just like, fuck it, I'll Google it.
Yeah, Castle Rock is part of Stephen King's fictional Maine topography and provides the setting for a number of his novels and short stories. Yeah, I thought it was.
Is all of King's shit tied together?
Well, kinda.
Because I've heard that, like...
And if you read the entire Dark Tower series, by the end, it will fucking blow your mind. So I would read a bunch of his other books first.
Yeah.
Because that will make for a much bigger payoff at the end of that series. But yeah, so Arkham is like Castle Rock in the Stephen King world.
Okay.
And Miskatonic University is the the big university there with the medical school, and
yeah,
there's a lot of references to that in his other short stories. So they're working on their postgraduate stuff.
West had gained quite a bit of notoriety for his experiments leading towards the revivification of the dead.
The first half of this chapter is just a recap of what just happened in the first chapter.
Yeah.
And West has come to the conclusion that body they used must not have been fresh enough. That's a recurring complaint of his, is like, well, it wasn't fresh enough. It's got to be fresh.
Yeah, and it says here that after that experience with the dude that burnt down the house, that he did quit his research for a while.
Right.
But
yeah, scared him straight for a bit.
Yeah, but then curiosity got the better of him and he started back up. And this I thought was really creepy too, because especially back in the day, it says pleading for the use of the dissecting room and of fresh human specimens for the work he regarded as so overwhelmingly important. Begging to use the dissecting room and fresh bodies after you're known as the dude that's trying to revive bodies, you know that's going to raise an eyebrow or 12.
I don't think he's hiding it when he's pleading for the use of those rooms.
Well, that's what I mean.
For their facilities, yeah.
That's what I mean. I mean, he's known as the dude that wants to fucking bring back dead people. And then he's begging them, please let me use the fucking dead bodies in the dissecting room. And they actually fucking let him, don't they?
No. Halsey is dead set against it.
Okay,
so
yeah, that's right.
Are all the other faculty. They agree with his verdict of no way are you doing that here.
Yeah, so it's like I said, that would raise an eyebrow or 12, right? They were like, what are you, fucking nuts? You're the one who's trying to bring back the dead, dipshit. No. Leave our shit alone. I just looked down and seen irrationally retarded.
Irrationally retarded? Yeah. I just saw that too. Yeah, he feels that he's being irrationally retarded by Dr. Halsey and the puritanical faculty of Miskatonic Medical School.
Yeah, because he's trying to pursue supremely great work.
Yeah, and he's really resentful and irritated that he's got access to all these facilities and stuff, but he can't use it for his own, for these works that he thinks so important. Yeah, so then they get to the end of the recap, and that's when they get back to, then came the scourge of typhoid.
Yeah.
And they just graduated when that started happening.
Okay.
So they stayed on at the university to help out with the influx of typhoid patients.
Yeah, during summer.
Yeah, so that they could retain access to the facilities and the equipment and stuff.
They both weren't licensed yet, but they both had their degrees, and they were pressed into service as the number of the stricken grew. And the situation, as happened in small towns and shit like that, with something like that, got worse.
Yeah, and they just start burying people as quick as possible without embalming, which for them is great news.
Yeah, no shit. The college had all but closed, and every doctor of the medical facility was helping to fight the typhoid plague. Dr. Halsey, in particular, had distinguished himself in sacrificing service, applying his extreme skill with wholehearted energy to cases which many thought were dangerous or hopeless. And soon Halsey became like the fucking hero of the town.
Right, because he's working so hard to help these sick people and try to contain the outbreak and all this, and he's not concerned about catching it himself. He's like a plague doctor. He's just like fucking wades right in and is like...
Yeah, and even though he was like fucking West's Lex Luthor, he couldn't help but admire the dude for all that he put in.
Yeah, so the college is basically closed down because they're they're so overworked.
Yeah,
Just trying
because
to keep up with this medical.
they need all
crisis.
hands on deck to fucking take care of the typhoid.
Right. So during all this disorganization and chaos, they managed to smuggle in a recently deceased body into the dissecting room.
Mm-hmm.
And
With a new modification to the serum, the thing actually opened its eyes. It stared at the ceiling for a few minutes and then collapsed. Yeah, and just collapsed like that and never got back up again.
right. And again, West is like, nah, wasn't fresh enough.
Yeah, this hot summer air, whoo, it's making them rot fast. And it says that time they were almost caught before they could incinerate the fucker.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. So they take him down to the fucking incinerator and just burn him up.
Uh-huh. That August...
Yeah, it's the peak of the outbreak of the crisis. And he says, the West and I were almost dead, and Dr. Halsey did die on the 14th.
Uh-oh.
So, uh-oh. I wonder what could happen here.
Nothing good.
Yep. So the students all attended a hasty funeral for him, and blah blah blah. And it was almost a public affair because, like you said, he'd become this big folk hero almost of this typhoid outbreak.
Yeah. After the funeral, basically everybody else went home or to take care of whatever else they needed to take care of. And that night, West persuaded the narrator to make a night of it.
Yeah. In the morning, after they have their fucking bender, to mourn their professor's death or whatever, they were going out and trying to live it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, they come home with a third man in between them, a drunk that they say they met at the bar and, didn't want to turn him out in the street, so they just brought him home with them.
Yeah. The broad questioned them. They kind of blew her off, and she told her husband that they'd all apparently drank too much. And an hour later, it says, the whole house was aroused by cries coming from West's room, where they had to break down the door. They found the two of them unconscious on the blood-stained carpet, which, again,
beaten and unconscious.
The fucking scene. Can you just imagine the fucking scene of this room?
Yeah, like furniture broken, blood on the floor, two guys knocked out.
Mm-hmm. And it goes back to what you've been saying about the time, because they're like fucking beat up, scratched up, everything's destroyed, and it says mauled. They've been mauled.
Yeah, and the window's open, so like, where's this third guy they brought back with them? Apparently, he must have jumped out the second-story window, and they're like, how the fuck did this guy jump out of the second-story window and run away?
Yeah, and there were
after beating the shit out of these guys and busting up this room.
Yeah, and his instruments are broken. There's clothes, unknown clothes everywhere.
Oh yeah, they found some weird clothing, weird garments in the room, and they're like, oh no, that didn't belong to that person that was in the room with us. That was yeah, we were collecting those and testing those for germs and shit.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's what happened.
You should. These are dangerous though. You should burn these right away.
Yeah.
So they took them to the fireplace and burned them.
That doesn't seem suspicious.
No, they lied to the police, and they're like, yeah, we don't know who this guy was. He was just some stranger we met. Just like every episode of Cops.
Yeah, no shit.
I don't know him. I don't know him.
Yeah, I just met these guys. I was taking them for a ride. She's a hooker?
Yeah, or yeah, oh no, he's my friend. We've been hanging out for, 6 months. What's his last name? I don't know.
His name's drugs? He's got drugs? Why would you have drugs in my car, sir? You are going to have to walk now.
Yep.
After that, that night, they heard a story of a watchman being clawed to death in a manner not only too hideous for description, but raising a doubt as to the human agency of the deed. They even interviewed the dude who ran a circus in a neighboring town.
Yeah, to make sure their lion didn't fucking escape.
Yeah. But he swore no beast had escaped from there. And the people who found the body noted a trail of blood leading to the receiving tomb, where they found a small pool of blood, and then a faint trail leading to the woods. Apparently, whatever the fuck this dude has in this concoction makes fuckers want to die again.
Yeah, real bad. Well, they want to get back to their grave.
Yeah.
Because they're supposed to be dead. They don't want to be alive.
So yeah, they all go back to the cemetery and start fucking clawing at anybody and anything that gets in their way as they try to get back in the ground. Which, again, is just a fucking horrific...
I know, that's so ghoulish.
It's a fucking horrific notion for the day.
Yeah. And then the next night, 8 houses got broken into by some nameless thing that says strewed red death in its wake. In all, 17 maimed and shapeless remnants of bodies were left behind by the voiceless, sadistic monster that crept abroad.
Holy shit.
Some who saw it say it looked like a malformed ape or anthropomorphic fiend.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it hadn't left behind everything that it had attacked, because sometimes it had been hungry and it fucking ate people. The number it killed was 14. 3 of the bodies had been in stricken homes and had not been alive. So he was eating dead corpses.
Yeah.
And then on the 3rd night,
it gets worse.
a frantic band of searchers led by the police captured it in a house on Crane Street near the Miskatonic campus. So they had all these volunteers on telephones calling around to see, like, people who sighted it.
Yeah.
And they reported hearing a scratching at a shuttered window. They said there was only 2 more victims because people were on the lookout for this thing, and the capture was effected without major casualties. The thing was finally stopped by a bullet, though not a fatal one, and was rushed to the local hospital amidst universal excitement and loathing. Because what they find out is it had been a man, not some kind of monster or animal. They patched him up and sent him off to Sefton Asylum, where they just said earlier in this chapter, that's where I guess West had been working, and he just refers to it as the mishap. Sefton has had the mishap, and West is now missing.
Yeah.
So they sent this thing off to that asylum. When they cleaned this thing up, they noticed that his face bared an unbelievable resemblance to Dr. Alan Halsey.
Yeah, they fucking took fucking Halsey. And you know that had to have been like a great fuck you to him for trying to stop West.
Oh, for sure. And again, at the end of the chapter, after the 2 of them got patched up, the assistant recalls West muttering through his bandages, "Damn it, it just wasn't fresh enough."
It says while it was in that cell for 16 years, it said it just beat its head against the wall for 16 years, too.
Until the recent mishap when it escaped under circumstances that few like to mention.
Exactly. So you know that fucking thing, dead, reanimated, Halsey's face had to have been like fucking hamburger at that point, even though it was like a padded cell. Which, I mean, that's basically the theme for this, I guess. That's fucked up.
Yeah, it's a fucked up story. I mean, it's kind of a fucked up story even for now.
Oh, yeah.
But 95 years ago?
Yeah.
He's lucky he didn't get locked up.
Yeah, because, I mean, this wasn't long after the time when they fucking did that shit.
Yeah, like, where are these ideas coming from, dude?
Uh-huh.
Are you digging up dead bodies?
And I mean, like, the Salem witch trials and shit were only, like, what, 150 years before this?
Yeah.
So, they didn't fucking take the quantum leaps forward like we have in, say, the last 40 years. So
Right.
they were a lot closer to that than we are to this.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah,
Crazy.
You do wonder if like somebody fucking tried to get a hold of this dude and see what his fucking deal was.
Oh, probably.
Which kind of makes me worry based on what I've written for that thing on my site.
Oh, you're on a watch list, brother.
Oh, I know, probably.
For sure. Fucking FBI's keeping tabs on you.
Yoo-hoo! Oh, boy.
So, Chapter 3, 6 Shots by Midnight. Now, this is maybe one of the coolest opening sentences to a chapter you're ever going to read.
Yes.
It is uncommon to fire all 6 shots of a revolver with great suddenness when one would probably be sufficient. But many things in the life of Herbert West were uncommon.
And it's like, okay.
Now that's a fucking sentence.
No shit. That's like, okay, so what happened then? And then again,
Yeah, so then,
we've got to go.
Again, recap.
Yes. Which again, it feels like whoever this fucking editor, what was his name again? Because he needs a resounding fuck you.
Oh, that guy from the magazine that paid for
Yeah,
these
George
stories.
Julian Houghton or whatever his fucking name is. Dude, what the fuck? Because it really bogs it down and holds it back from being what it could have been.
Kinda, yeah. But I mean, we're reading it bang, 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 you know? Like,
True.
when these were originally published,
True.
That's why when I read it, I was like, these must have been serialized. This couldn't have possibly been how he wrote the chapters of a book.
Very true. I mean, it's sort of like that the thing with comic books where, you know, like they jam all the dialogue, the recap dialogue into the first few pages and shit. When you read 3 issues in a row, it's like, come the fuck on.
Yeah, it's very repetitive. Yeah. So some time has passed, and they're fully licensed doctors now.
And they're in the next town over, Bolton, which that's the town that the circus fucker was in.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So they set up shop in this house. Well, they picked a house that's, again, close to the Potter's Field.
Yeah.
So it's separated by a few hundred yards and like a little strip of woods.
Yeah, and it says 5 numbers from the closest neighbor. So the neighbors aren't that close either.
Yeah, and so their main business is to work on the employees of this mill in this town.
Yeah, because it's a small factory town.
Yeah, and apparently these guys are kind of dickheads and nobody else really wants to treat them. So they're like, yeah, we'll fucking do it.
And this is where things start getting like, oh no.
Yeah. Yeah, things are about to take a turn.
Yeah, where it's like, ugh.
Oh, we're talking about the description
yes.
of the guy? Yeah. No, I was talking about the ending.
Well, I mean, the ending is cool, but this is where we start hitting roadblocks.
A little bit. This is where he kind of talks about how he's discovered the solutions need to be formulated specifically for the person you're trying to reanimate.
Mm-hmm.
And the bodies had to be exceedingly fresh, or any slight decomposition of the brain tissue would render reanimation impossible.
Exactly.
Perfect reanimation. So he's like, the greatest problem was to get them fast, or to get them fresh enough.
Which, that makes me wonder. We've got 3 chapters left. It makes you wonder at what point he's just going to start killing.
Yeah. It's got to be soon.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got to come to that conclusion pretty soon. And at that point, then what's the fucking point? What would be the point then of reanimating somebody that you just killed just so you could reanimate them?
I guess so that if somebody does get killed, he could reanimate him. I don't know. But
yeah, but then they wouldn't be fresh enough. Then they wouldn't reanimate perfectly.
I guess what he's trying to do is make sure he gets the solution right, because even though like he needs them fresh, the solution's still not there either.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I guess that's like the X factor. That's kind of an X factor of, you know, is it the solution's not right or the body's not fresh enough?
Exactly. And I'm thinking what's going to happen is he's looking to get the solution right, and that way like people are like, "Oh god, fucking dad just fell out of a tree." Rush over there and be like, pop it in his vein, and it's like, haha, I fixed him, boop, or something. I don't know, but that's what I see coming. The fucker's gonna start killing.
Yeah, so they have good luck in this new location getting fresh specimens. So there's like 3 or 4 that they go through real quick. All of them were failures. Then their luck kind of dried up, and
they
go through a period where
they found one that didn't have an arm, which that one, it's like you already figured out you didn't want them too damaged. Why would?
Well, I guess you take what you can get sometimes. I guess he was like, well, fuck it, let's try it.
I guess. And it says if we had had a perfect body, we might have succeeded better. But then, between then and the next January, they'd secured 3 more, 1 total failure, 1 case of marked muscular motion, which that right there, I love that, because I love me some alliteration.
Right.
And 1 rather, does that say 1 rather shivery thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, hang on. Yeah, my eye just went blurry.
It rose and uttered a sound, then came... Yeah, it rose and uttered a sound.
Yeah, and then came a period when luck was poor. March came.
And here's where things get a little fucked up.
Yeah. Again, the fucking Puritan town and shit, they made boxing illegal.
Right, so you can't box in this town. So what happens? They start running illegal boxing matches.
In the mill, amongst the workers. Right. And occasionally professional boxers of the low grade, they would come into town. And one late night, there was a match and shit went south.
Somebody got beat to death. Some of the guys came directly to them and were like,
well, it's not just 2 guys.
Well, yeah, 3 poles.
Yeah, 2 timorous poles, and it's like, oh boy.
Well, I mean, that's all right. He's just painting the picture that they have foreign workers there. Immigrant workers.
Okay, let's go with that.
I mean, he didn't call them Polacks, at least.
Well, I mean, it's not that far off.
Well, a Pole, that's what you call a Pole, isn't it? Polish person? A Pole?
I guess I would think you would call them Polish now.
Well, yeah, but Polish isn't plural. You couldn't say 3 Polish.
I don't know. That just seems like something that, if it was written now, people would get in an uproar about.
Yeah, hold on. I'm going to Google it.
Okay, do that. See, this is what everybody comes to Nerd Blitz for. We're gonna fucking educate you on some shit. Hopefully.
The noun Pollock. Oh, yeah, we know that one. We know that one. Give me something else here.
I mean, for fuck's sake, you could have worded it slightly different, but like, there was two
Polish gentlemen.
Yeah, two Polish workers came and were like, dude, we fucked up. We made a duty.
The neutral English language alternative to the term Polish person today is Pole.
Okay.
So that is okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought that was okay.
It's hard to tell anymore, man.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, these two Polacks came. No. These three Polish dudes come and they're like, "Hey man, can you guys come look at something for us?"
They came
So
up
they
with
go to
like,
the
"Hey
barn.
kid, you want to see a dead body?"
Yeah. No, they're like, could you we need some help. Could you tend to this person for me?
Mm-hmm.
And they come and they're like, this guy's fucking dead. So they show up where this boxing match was and everybody's freaked out because there's this black dude laying on the ground.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, he's obviously already dead.
Yes.
So then they're like,
And this is where the description goes off the tracks. It says, and this is a quote, so don't give us no shit.
right.
The Negro had been knocked out, and a moment's examination showed us that he would permanently remain so. He was a loathsome gorilla-like thing with abnormally long arms, which I could not help calling forelegs. I read that and I was like, oh, Lord.
I know. And then it gets worse.
I know.
And a face that conjured up thoughts of unspeakable Congo secrets and tom-tom poundings under an eerie moon. Jesus Christ.
And it gets worse still. The body must have looked even worse in life.
Oh, that's fucking crazy.
It's like,
but anyway,
good Lord, dude.
they tell the guys, hey, don't worry, we'll make this guy disappear for you.
Yeah.
So the workers are all like, or the people at this boxing match are all like, whew, well, we don't have to worry about that now.
Yeah.
So nobody even bothers to ask, hey, what are you going to do with this body? So they dress this guy up and they weekend at Bernie him too. Walk him home.
And they keep calling the body an it. We dressed the thing and carried it home between us.
Right.
And it's
Well,
like,
and that has
dude, you're
nothing- that has
doubling
nothing-
down now.
No, they do that with the other bodies.
I know.
Yeah,
But after that
that's
description,
not-
it really popped out.
Oh yeah, yeah. So they take this guy down in the cellar and they shoot him full of the serum.
Yeah, and it says, ghastly as our prize appeared, it was wholly unresponsive to every solution we injected in its black arm. Solutions prepared from experience with white specimens only. And that's what caused me to go on my rant earlier. And it's like, we're all the fucking same. It's a genetic mutation, man. Because his fucking tribal ancestors was like, fuck it, you leave. We like the sun.
Mm-hmm.
So their bodies were like, well, I don't like this. And their brains were like, but we do. And it's like, fuck it, we'll make you dark. It'll protect you from the cancer and such.
Well, I think it's probably the opposite.
What?
I think it's more the opposite, that we were all dark, and then as people migrated to colder climates, their skin lightened.
Oh, yeah, that's true. But still, you know what I meant.
But yeah, I get the point. Don't forget, I was an anthropology major for
What weren't you a major of?
Success.
Join the fucking club.
So anyway, they mark this one up as a failure too, and they take him down to the cellar, and they take him out to that stretch of woods that is between the potter's field and their new house, and they bury him in a shallow grave and cover it up with leaves, and they're sure nobody will find it. And then the next day they're kind of freaked out because there's all these rumors of an illegal fight and somebody getting killed at the fight, and so they're worried that the police are going to come asking questions.
Which, so much
'cause
for
the
everybody
doctors are in
being
town.
worried, right?
Right.
It was like, oh, we're worried. We shouldn't talk about this. Then the first thing that comes up, did y'all hear there was a fight last night and some dude got dead?
Yep.
Oh, boy.
Then they get called into so West gets a call to come to check out this Italian woman who'd become hysterical over her missing child, a 5-year-old who'd stayed straight off early in the morning and failed to appear for dinner.
Hmm.
So Yeah, about 7 o'clock in the evening, she died. She had a heart attack because she was so hysterical.
Yeah.
And so then her husband is like super pissed at West because he thinks it's his fault that she died. So he like goes after him with a knife. And people have to hold him back.
Yeah, that. Wow. The dude forgot all about his kid, who was still missing. They were like,
Right.
well, maybe we should search the woods, but they got distracted by the dead woman and were like, well, fuck the kid. Basically.
Uh-huh. So they go to bed and then have some restless sleep, and then
all of a sudden somebody comes beating at the back door.
yeah, there's a banging at the back door. Of course, like two scaredy cats, they're like, you gotta come with me. So they have to go together to go check it out.
Yeah, and West brings his gun and he's like, hey, you want to come see? Because they're not sure if it's, something happened in the town, so somebody came beating on the door, or if it was the husband coming to be like, guess what, motherfucker? So West shows up with his revolver and grabs the narrator, and they go to the door. And
West throws open the door, and the moonlight shines down on the thing that's standing there, and he immediately fucking unloads 6 shots from his gun without even hesitating.
Yeah.
So that's where that first sentence of the chapter comes back. It's a nice little bookend.
Uh-huh.
Well, yeah, it says, West did a peculiar thing. Despite the obvious danger of attracting notice and bringing down on our heads the dreaded police investigation, a thing which, after all, was mercifully averted by the relative isolation of our cottage, my friend suddenly, excitedly, and unnecessarily emptied all 6 chambers of his revolver into the nocturnal visitor.
Which nocturnal visitor? Doesn't that sound sort of sexy?
Kinda. It's a succubus.
A succubus.
A succubus.
But yeah, it says, looming hideously against the spectral moon was a gigantic misshapen thing not to be imagined saved in nightmares. A glassy-eyed, inky black apparition nearly on all fours. Covered with bits of mold, leaves, and vines, found with caked blood, and having between its glistening teeth a snow-white, terrible, cylindrical object terminating in a small hand.
So this fucking thing's got a baby's arm in his
It's got a baby's arm holding an apple. Get it?
Yeah, so the black dude they reanimated is who killed that kid and ate his ass. Or is at least carrying his arm around like a bone.
Yeah.
Yeah, things are getting increasingly worse. Progressively more fucked
No
up.
shit. Yeah, so
I wonder, I didn't read ahead, so I wonder if the gunshots actually killed
yeah,
that
I didn't
thing.
read ahead either. It didn't sound like it took it down, but who the fuck knows?
Yeah, I don't know.
Again, this is the first time you've read it. You're the Lovecraft fan. How did it hit you?
It hit me good. I was afraid that it was going to be lame just because the Re-Animator movie's kind of lame. Well, not lame, but kind of
It's not great.
cliched. Yeah, it's just like, okay, dude reanimates dead bodies. I didn't think there'd be that much to it. Wasn't sure how he was going to make it suspenseful or all that interesting. Yeah. Like is it going to be fucking 5 chapters of him tinkering with a solution and then finally it works at the end? I didn't know there was going to be quite so much going on, which is good because it made it way more interesting and creepy and intriguing.
Do any of his other stories, are any of the other ones like this, or that you've read, or do you know?
Oh, like serialized?
Yeah.
And
are they as fucked up as this?
Oh yeah, they're all fucked up.
Okay.
Yeah, they're all fucked up. Like the Dunwich Horror is pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
Some of them are just kind of some of them are just like pure monster or creature, supernatural creature stories like
Cthulhu.
Yeah, which is fucked up, but it's more like a monster story, not like this is more fucked
graphic
up
horror sort of.
Yeah, so it's really kind of like humans doing ghoulish shit.
Yeah.
Whereas, a lot of his other stuff is
Cthulhu is one that really interests me, and it's not just because of that episode of Mystery Inc.
Yeah.
But that's one of those that always sounded really fucked up, the squid-headed fucker. But I've never known where to get a hold of it because I used to look at Barnes & Noble all the time to try to find his shit, but I just was lost, you know?
Yeah.
It's sort of like, for years I looked for Doyle shit, and I didn't find it until Barnes & Noble had it in those 2 volumes, and then I got those.
Right.
But I've always looked for Cthulhu, and I just couldn't find it, so... Yeah, I would like to read that one.
Yeah, it's good, and I think that's one of his longer stories, too.
Is it?
It's actually pretty long. Or is it might be Shadow over Innsmouth is pretty long. I think they're both they're more like novellas than short stories.
So, you dug this, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
This is, I mean, it's totally, like you said, people say this is his worst or his weakest effort, but I don't know. It fucking reads just like Lovecraft to me.
Yeah. Like I said, it's the first thing I've ever read of his. I really want to read more now, you know? Anything else you wanted to say?
No, I don't think so. I think I'm good.
Yeah, we covered it pretty well. I'll do our thank yous real quick. As always, thanks to @TheJSarge for our song. Thanks to @SherrySays for our logo. Thanks to Batcat37 and @TESDGroupie for helping me out with that intro. Thanks to all 4 of yous. As for our shit, we're a part of the High Altitude Podcast Network. You can find that at highaltpod.net. We're on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, and of course, nerdblitz.com. Search Nerdblitz on YouTube for all kinds of extra cool shit. I'm @the Scooby Doom. You're
@Fitzman73.
Together we are @NerdblitzPod. And is that everything?
I think that's everything.
Until next time when we read more of Herbert West, Re-Animator by H.P. Lovecraft.
Bookmark it.
This has been a feature of JJ2E Media and TSDJA Productions.